We're back for our third topic of the week. Everyone's looking for ways to increase revenue. One thing that the Lake County has been looking at is a wheel tax, isn't it, Mark?
Yes, the Lake County Council is looking at what a wheel tax would be, a tax on motor vehicles, wheel tax, and supposedly all of the monies that would come in from the wheel tax, the revenue derived from the wheel tax, would go to fund things like fixing potholes and things like that. In other words, it's kind of like, and I really dislike this term because I think it's just a fake term for more taxes, but it's a user fee. It's like if you're using our highways and if you're using our roads, this wheel tax will help fund the upkeep of those roads, those bridges, and things like that.
But it's a wheel tax based on where you live rather than where you drive.
Right, and each community is going to need its, it would be impossible to do it for where you drive because you'd have to have someone, monitoring where you drive all the time. That's what my objection has always been to the pollution testing of automobiles in Lake and Porter counties, is that most of the pollution that's given off is given off on the Borman Expressway by cars and trucks that don't even belong to people who live here, and we've shown such an improvement in that area, and they still don't want to repeal that. So
right,
but
well, a technological solution would be to if they want to track. Vehicles, you just install an iPhone or an iPad in every way, because we know now that they're tracking those.
We'd always put a chip in every car and know where they are.
Steve Jobs knows where you've been.
Exactly.
That leads to a lot of that's a really slippery slope there.
Yeah.
But the wheel tax, and my concern about it is it's going to raise, as structured, quite a bit of money. It'll raise, I believe, for Hammond and Gary, the two largest cities in the county, it'll raise over $1 million each for them. Not that they don't need it. If you've driven through Hammond and Gary recently, which I have, they sure could use some pothole fixing. But when you give them $1.7 million, $1.4 million, I'm a little concerned about the accountability for it.
Well, the interesting thing about the wheel tax is that it's different from the distribution of it. It's different from the income tax, because presumably, where the more people are, that would be where you would have more vehicles. It would not necessarily true, but rough correlation. Whereas the income distribution is, much different, and so with a wheel tax, you're putting more dollars into the urban core.
Well, not only do you have more vehicles, but you also, one would assume that in the larger urban areas, you've got more miles of paved road.
Right.
That's also a consideration.
And I was going to ask that. What is the motive? Lake County is the last holdout county, the last county without a county income tax. Why go the route of a wheel tax rather than a county income tax?
Because the reason Indiana is Lake County is the last holdout in Indiana on the income tax is simply because the fight over the distribution of that money.
Yeah.
The mayoral candidates last night in Gary, were the Democratic candidates, were talking about this, or at least the 7 who were there, and it was interesting. They had various opinions about should there be a Lake County income tax. Reagan Hatcher came out and said that we not only need a Lake County income tax, but we especially need a municipal income tax for Gary, which would require legislative approval and probably not happen. But
well, I mean, that's, not to drift too far off topic, but that would be extremely problematic because right now Gary is you can't give blood out of a turnip, and a lot of Gary is seeing itself funded by. Excuse me.
And if you're trying to lure new residents to a city that has been losing residents for so long, how are you going to do that if you have a tax that no one else in the surrounding area has.
And you've already made things so difficult for people who live up in the Miller Beach area, where you're seeing houses.
Well, the
with,
property taxes are astronomical.
$13,000 in property taxes.
Exactly.
Not only can't they sell their house, but they almost can't afford to live in it.
Yeah.
To say now we want a municipal tax on top of a county income tax, this is just a really poor time for that to be done.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
Gary, of course, being in front of the distressed, the distressed unit board, has basically carte blanche to tax its citizens as it wants.
but that's just this year. I mean, they've
Right,
got
that's
to
gonna
get that
go away,
taxation problem under control, or the residents will figure every day is Palm Sunday.
Yeah.
Fork it over.
And thank you for that Holy Week reference.
And that'll do it for this week. Thank you for watching, and please join us next week for another NWI.com Political Roundtable.